And could we hear it for constitutional patriots like Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger who are standing up for our democracy?
On January 6, 2022, a series of events featuring members of Congress and activists from both the right and the left illuminated diverging narratives among the rival factions of what happened on January 6, 2021. Over the past year, media has squarely placed blame on President Trump and contended that violence by his supporters against police for the purposes of blocking election certification constituted an attempted coup. Progressives take this point a step further, viewing January 6th as indicative of a wider, conservative effort to undermine democracy itself.
January 6th can either mark the end of our democracy or the beginning of our march towards expansion of rights and justice and equity and fairness for all. And I choose the latter. I choose the latter. And I know that you all have made that choice as well.
Just continue to give us your wisdom, because we know our country was founded on you, and we know...
For conservatives, a number of divergent narratives have emerged. Micki Witthoeft, mother of Ashli Babbitt, arrived at the Capitol early Thursday morning. Her goal for the day, she says, was to challenge the government's narrative about her daughter's death. She believes the government hasn't been transparent following January 6th, citing thousands of hours of security footage at the Capitol, which is mostly not slated for release to the public.
I want to see all of it. I want to see what happened. And if there was bad behavior on the part of patriots that day, we'll see that. And if there was bad behavior on the part of the Capitol Police today, that day we'll see that. And if there was bad behavior on the part of the Metropolitan Police that day, we'll see that. If there was bad behavior by Congress that day, maybe we'll see that. I absolutely know we'll see footage of Michael Byrd running around with his finger on the trigger. I know we'll see that. I know we'll see him shoot my daughter dead without so much as telling her to halt, not come in, and, skipping the use of force continuing steps 1 through 6. I know we'll see that. Let's see what happened. I think that the American people have a right to see all of it.
For Witthoeft's friends, they view the Trump supporters themselves as the victims of January 6th.
Actually, I wish that our government didn't attack its people in what was really the insurrection that day. The government attacked the people. That was the real insurrection. I wish that never happened. I wish we were allowed, first of all, I wish the election was never stolen, because then the Trumps would be in the White House and we would have a real president. But the election was stolen. So that day, I wish the United States people were just allowed to come here and practice their First Amendment rights and say, hey, we're not okay with you stealing the election. That's how that day should have gone. But they had other things in mind.
They had other things in mind.
Yeah, they wanted to stop the process, and they successfully did that. It's not hard to take an emotional crowd and stir them up. It's not hard, and people were emotional. There's no doubt about that. It doesn't take much, so they planted a few people in there to stir the crowd and create the narrative that they now have.
The notion that January 6th was instigated by federal agents has not just been confined to the Trump base. On Capitol Hill later in the day, Representatives Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene spoke out, trying to brand the incident as a possible Fedsurrection.
We are here to expose the truth, to ask key questions about what happened on January 6th, who animated the violence, the extent to which the federal government may have been involved. We know this: January 6th last year wasn't an insurrection. No one's been charged with insurrection. No one has been charged with treason. But it very well may have been a Fedsurrection.
I want you all to know that on January 6th, I was very upset with what happened that day, and it was because it completely interrupted the work that we had worked very hard on all throughout Christmas, preparing for January 6th to object on behalf of Americans that felt their votes had been stolen.
Joe Biden's certification still occurred on January 6th, but we were deprived of the opportunity to make our argument to the country about election integrity. And that is the very same constitutional process that was contemplated when Jim McGovern, the Democrat chairman of the Rules Committee, literally got up and objected in 2017 to the state of Alabama, a state that Donald Trump won by over 40 points. So when they do it, they're making a principled point, and when we do it, they try to smear us and tens of millions of Americans as insurrectionists. And that's why Marjorie and I are here today, because we did not want the Republican voice to go unheard, and we did not want today's historical narrative to be hijacked and captured by those who were the true insurrectionists.
So what about the 140 police officers that were injured? Can you tell me a little bit about your reactions when you saw the footage of the police officers being assaulted, and if you have any words for them today, a year after.
Yeah, I'll say the same thing I've said all year long. I'll say the same thing I said starting that day. It was appalling. And I want to know why the National Guard was not outside the Capitol. I am furious at that. And I want you to know that members of Congress and definitely the Speaker of the House, she knew that there was going to be violence that day. President Trump requested the National Guard, so did others. They knew things were going to happen, but for some reason they thought that optics would look bad if they had the National Guard there. Yes, as a freshman member of Congress, only a few days on the job, yeah, I'm angry the National Guard wasn't out there and they left the Capitol Police as sitting ducks to have to deal with all of this.
And I would add to that, what if those Capitol Police officers are victims of people like Ray Epps?
Absolutely.
What if they're victims of an orchestrated effort by the FBI or other federal law enforcement to increase the criminal acuity of that day? So I would suggest that every officer that was harmed that day would likely be served well by answering these questions that Attorney General Garland and Director Wray refused to answer.
We're gonna heal the hate in this nation. We're gonna heal the hate.
We choose democracy.
We choose democracy.
Hey!
Outside the Capitol, several progressive members of Congress spoke out in their own Vigil for Democracy commemorating January 6th.
Progressives and liberals can never defeat fascism on their own. It is always progressives and liberals and the center-right that come together to defend democracy, and we're going to do it again here in the United States of America. We are the majority. We are the majority.
The thing that I keep with me to this day, a year later, is that we saved democracy. And when I say we, I am not talking about we members of Congress. I'm talking about we the people. All the people who voted that day or that election to get rid of a corrupt president who was trying to steal an election. All the people who ensured that no matter what happened, we were not going to succumb to the insurrectionists, the Capitol Police officers that Jamie talked about. And God bless Jamie Raskin for everything that he has gone through and all the leadership that he has shown as he led the impeachment trial in the Senate, where, don't forget, we got more votes, more bipartisan votes to impeach that president than ever before. It just wasn't quite enough because there wasn't enough courage. There wasn't enough courage and commitment to our democracy at that time.
For them, the January 6th attack did not exist in a vacuum, and, in a way, it didn't end. Many contended that the events of January 6th were part of a larger project to deny the fair outcome of an election, which is continued by the passage of restrictive voter laws.
So today, instead of seeing the violent mobs attacking the Capitol, you see that big lie materializing in a different form. You see it materializing in the form of legislatures, Trump Republican-controlled legislators taking action in state after state to put up barriers to the ballot box. And they're not just trying to stop everybody from voting, they are targeting voters of color, they are targeting younger voters, they're targeting voters with disabilities. As the court said about an earlier effort in North Carolina, they are targeting voters of color with surgical precision.
Eleanor Holmes Norton is the shadow representative for Washington, D.C. She views January 6th as an attack not only on democracy, but Washington, D.C. itself, and D.C.'s lack of state-equivalent representation as another symptom of the same problem.
The attack was not only an attack on democracy, it was an attack on the District of Columbia where we are now standing. The D.C. Police Department, which is paid for by D.C. residents who are denied representation in the House and the Senate and full self-government, moved voluntarily to save the lives of members of Congress, congressional staff, the Capitol, and democracy itself. Yet, House Republicans thanked D.C. by voting against the D.C. statehood bill only a few months after the attack.
As the Vigil for Democracy wrapped in front of the Capitol, Look Ahead America, the organization behind the September 18th rally at the U.S. Capitol for January 6 defendants, held their own vigil outside the D.C. jail.
All the charades and all the games are played up on Capitol Hill today, decrying it as the worst thing since Pearl Harbor, since the Civil War, since 9/11. Really, a couple of boomers getting lost on a self-guided tour of the Capitol. Worst thing since Pearl Harbor. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave?
The group lit candles commemorating Ashli Babbitt and again claiming that January 6 defendants held inside are political prisoners.
It's been clear to all of us that this has nothing to do with what they did on that day and everything to do with their political beliefs and the need of this regime and the need of the left-wing media in this country, no disrespect, to perpetuate the idea that there was a violent insurrection, because so much of their agenda is dependent upon that existing. You cannot have a violent insurrection without violent insurrectionists, despite the fact that almost everybody that's been arrested has not been charged with any violence or insurrection or destruction of property.
I believe the American people have a right to the 14,000 hours of missing video or a video footage of the Capitol Police surveillance. It is ours. It's we the people that belongs to us. It was paid for with tax dollars. It does not belong to Nancy Pelosi. It is not at her discretion to release it or not to release it. So call your local representatives and tell them how you feel about that 14,000 hours of your footage.
So I'm here not just for the dead, but for those who are being prosecuted for the fact of just simply going on an unguided tour of the Capitol building. And the truth will come out, and these people, the people who sincerely did nothing wrong, the truth will be revealed. Or the truth is all we have. Without it, we damn ourselves. Thank you, and God bless you all.
While relatively few attended, they viewed it as a success for the media turnout.
Honestly, this is mission accomplished. You may have been at our events at the Capitol and said, oh, there's only, well, the truth there was about 400 of our people there, about 300 media. Oh, there's just 400 people there. Man, there were millions of people that saw that, all over the place. 30,000 watched our own stream. So, I know, I already read a New York Times story from last night that went up saying, we're expecting mild turnout. Well, it's this mild turnout got a massive media response. And they're hearing our message far beyond the numbers that are here tonight. And that is why public surveys show that a majority now agree that the government is holding political prisoners.
In spite of reporting of the Capitol and Washington, D.C. being on high alert for January 6, 2022, no violence or arrests were reported. Former President Trump had planned for a parallel press conference at Mar-a-Lago that day, but ultimately canceled. Instead, he plans to hold another so-called Save America rally on January 15th in Arizona. Ford Fisher, News to Share for Activism Uncensored, a collaboration with TK News.